Griff Hamlin here. Welcome. Thanks for joining me today. This little excerpt that we have today was actually a request sent in from a member about a particular lick or idea that Stevie Ray Vaughan does in a YouTube video where he and Albert King are playing. I believe it's from that Sessions thing they did a long time ago. I believe the tune is "Ask Me No Questions." And it's kind of a cool turnaround thing that he does with this rake with the pick. And I actually played the whole 8-bar phrase at the beginning. It's an 8-bar form, so it just kind of made sense since it's not very long. In the beginning of it was fairly easy. I just gave you the whole thing to lead into what the real lesson is, which is really just the last couple of bars. But really quick, let's just kind of go over what the chord changes are, because it's not a standard 12-bar blues. It's an 8-bar blues, and it's kind of an interesting, it's got an interesting take. So it's in the key of B flat as best as I can tell. And so if you can imagine, the one chord is B flat, and it's in a straight feel, right? So it's kind of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. E flat 7, E flat 9, however you want to voice that. 2, 3, 4. Then it goes to F sharp or G flat, depending on how you want to call it. Since we're working in flats, I should call it G flat 7, which seems odd, but this is actually kind of a jazz move. There's a thing called a substitution in jazz. There are certain movements within jazz that don't really translate to classical music theory. In classical music theory, you call that a chromatic mediant, which is just a kind of a blatant move by either a minor or a major third. Just move, and it's not very explainable. In jazz, however, it happens fairly regularly, and the basic jazz rule is any chord that you play, you can move it by a minor third and it sounds okay. Jazz has rules like that. So that's the way I explain that particular change. So, like I said, goes from the E flat to the G flat, which is literally just moving by a minor third. And then we have another kind of jazzy thing, which is a 1, 6, 2, 5. So B flat, G7, C minor or C7, it's hard to tell from the recording, F7, okay? And then for the last 2 bars, B flat, E flat, B flat, and F. So it's B flat, E flat, G flat, B flat, G, C, F7, B flat, E flat, B flat, F. Okay? So being that it's in B flat, you would expect to get a lot of B flat, and that's exactly what we get. Starting right off in box 2, 2, 3. Okay, so if I count it out, it's just all that 9 to 11 on the second string and then the 9th fret on the first string. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, and give it a little blues squeeze, right? You want to, not a half step, not a full half step bend, but not right on pitch, just a little bit. 2, 3, 4, 1. And notice that in Albert King style, he just runs right to that second note. And you can hammer it on or pick it. 2, 3, 4, and then we bend up. Now you'll notice that I kind of rake the strings with my right hand. So my right hand palm is resting on the strings. And then right at the end, when I hit the last note, I get my palm off of it so it can ring out. And that next part is again the 9 to 11, and then it's kind of that sort of move. It's just, you just kind of strike a couple of the middle strings and fall off. There's no, it's not a particular note. Now, the next part here, he shoots up to box 3, I think. Now, I say I think because I can't see it on the video, but I can hear this note, which could also be played here. So I could either play it at the 14th fret of the second string or the 9th fret of the first string. The only reason I think it's the 14th fret of the second string is because I can clearly hear the next note is bent. It's a bend up to that note. Whereas if he went to here, that would either mean a finger shift or a bend with the first finger, which is a challenge. So when I play it, I'm doing it down here on the second string. So 14, bend it up a whole step, back to 11, 9, 11. Now we're gonna shift to box 1, and at this point we're at the 2 chord, the C minor or C7. 1 and 2 and 3. So 8th fret on the 3rd string, bend. 6th fret on the 1st string. 9th fret on the 2nd string. 6th fret on the 1st string. 8th fret on the 3rd string. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and. So 8 pulls off to 6 on the 3rd string and goes down to the 8th fret on the 4th string. And I'm going to break that down. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and. One more time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. So that's 6 to 7 on the 3rd string, 6 and 6. Notice the little finger roll. Don't do that where you play both of them at the same time. Particularly with more overdrive, that's going to be a big mess. Okay, so it's 6 to 7, 6, 6, 9 on the 2nd string. And now here's where this rake starts. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm dragging my pick up. And I'm basically pushing across the 6th fret, and my final destination is the 8th fret on the 3rd string. Okay, so I'm pushing, but as soon as I get there, I stop. Now the back of my thumb is dragging across the lower strings on my right hand. Also, you notice I've got my thumb around to help to mute out so I don't get some of those lower notes. So in time it's 2 and 3 and a 4 and 1. The next one's the 6th fret on the 3rd string. And 2 and, which is the 8th fret on the 5th string. So see, if I hold everything down, I'm just really dragging the pick hard across the string and everything rings out. That's not what I want. So when I get to the end, I relax that first finger. But it requires a lot of up picking. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then he just goes into something there. Alright, so hopefully that makes sense. It's a little bit of a tricky technique. It's very right hand heavy, and this actually is kind of fitting. I was actually just in a lesson the other day where we were talking about using the right hand to mute out some of those extra notes on the bottom. Kind of as a general rule. Now, you know, I make general rules knowing full well that they get broken many times. When I play, and when a lot of people play, the right hand, like your palm, you know, either the part attached to your thumb or more the heel, that kind of handles muting notes below the one you're playing. All right, so if I'm playing a note on the 3rd string, I can feel the strings on my palm. I know you can't really see it, but I can feel them across this section of my palm. I can feel them on there. when I play that note on the third string. So even all this time, my palm is resting on those lower two strings. Now what's important about that is it's very much the opposite of how you learn, when you're first starting. When we first start, it's all about, press with the tips of the fingers, and we try to keep our hands out of the way. I basically, what has to happen for a lot of blues stuff, particularly, you get an electric guitar, you get a little compression, a little more sustain. The overdrive makes it even worse. There's all this extra overring that will happen. If you hit a note hard on the third string and you're not touching the fourth, fifth, and sixth strings to mute them out a little bit, simply by striking the note on the third string, the sympathetic vibrations through the instrument will likely make the fourth, fifth, and sixth strings ring out. Now, when you're playing like on an acoustic or you're playing with a very clean tone, you might not notice because it'll be subtle. Once you add some overdrive in and you play the way we like to play, those little bits and pieces start to add up very quickly and become just kind of this noise floor that goes on. And you may have it going on and you might not even realize that it's going on, because it's sort of this subtle noisy thing in the background that's actually kind of hard to hear unless you're trained to listen for it. So when you play something like this, it's a really good opportunity to focus from the other way. And what I mean by that is keep your right hand on the strings, touching the strings, keeping them quiet until it's time to play a note, rather than keeping that right hand out of the way so it doesn't touch a string to keep it from ringing. So we're going to end up in the same place, but we're sort of coming at it from the other way. So I hope that makes sense. I know it's a little bit of a philosophical thing, but it's really important. And also on my left hand, basically the left hand is going to be responsible for muting the notes above the one that I want. So again, if I'm playing a note on the third string, in addition to the heel of my hand on these lower notes, I'm playing this note. Notice that I'm not using the tip of my finger the way we would typically be, the way we would tell a beginner to do it. Because in this case, my first finger is going to mute out those other two. And you'll notice that almost everybody does this, but probably doesn't really talk about it. And there's also little things like these little rolls. It's really easy to just let that slide. And that again sort of contributes to that little noise floor I was talking about, those little extra things ringing out. So when you practice this, practice it really slowly. Now, some things are going to sound really bad. Like if you play that really slowly, things like that, that doesn't sound pretty when you play it slowly, and I get that. But in the process of playing it slowly, you can really get used to what it feels like to drag your pick that hard across the string. Really dig in and pull it across. You might break some strings doing it. More often than not, I break strings with my pick and not from bending, but by picking them hard. So be aware of that. Yeah, it might break a string or two. But it's a great technique, it's a great sound, and it's a great opportunity to really focus on the right hand, and if it's doing its job and muting, you really will spend as much time muting out the unwanted sounds as you should spend getting the wanted sounds to come out. So it's an important part of learning to play. So I hope you've enjoyed this little lesson today, and I will talk to you soon.